All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to a Wednesday episode of Crypto with English. And this is a special dealing with the crisis and war in Ukraine and how cryptocurrency will play a role in the road forward. So it's pretty apparent to everybody we're in a very dark and violent time in 2022. The invasion of Ukraine has really revealed forces representing the worst of humanity, and resisting it are people and individuals possessing the best of humanity. So, how we write the next chapter is truly in our hands. So, you don't have to be a DC bureaucrat, a Wall Street suit, or a Bitcoin whale to make a difference. Web3 and DeFi has truly demonstrated to us all how powerful and capable a single individual is in making a difference for the better. So, one of my favorite Roman poets and philosophers is Ovid. And he said, dripping water hollows out the stone, not through force, but through persistence. And often in life, that is how some of the biggest obstacles are won. So I would like to proudly and passionately welcome my friend and Ukrainian co-founder of D.Center, Marie Poteriaieva. We are going to discuss the very powerful and meaningful initiatives that exist currently to help out Ukrainians who are stuck and suffering in the middle of this crisis. Marie, thank you very much for coming back on to the show today. And in fact, this is the second time she's been on my show. And to add further detail, she was one of the first guests who came onto my show way back in the middle of last year. So, Marie, I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam, for having me. And thank you for taking time to shed light on this issue, on the war in Ukraine, which is really, really important one for the whole world, for the humanity itself, and for the appreciation of crypto too.
Right. And I was wondering if you could shed some light on maybe some misunderstandings of Russia and its relationship to Ukraine, because often when I turn on the news, a lot of the major, I guess you could say, news platforms kind of act like this is a surprise, as if this almost came out of left field. And in fact, for many who know better, there is a precedent for this. So, what is the precedent and what exactly is the world dealing with as far as Vladimir Putin and his ambitions?
Yeah, I can share a bit of my personal history.
Sure.
I was raised in the city of Kharkiv. It's a big city in the eastern Ukraine. Right. It's a Russian-speaking city, and from before 2008, from before the Orange Revolution, being Russian-speaking city, we were often and mistakenly took by Russians as Russians, although we are Russian-speaking Ukrainians.
Right.
And this is a huge difference. And it took us 2008, the Orange Revolution, and then 2014, the Maidan, to consequently try and prove that no, we are not Russians. And each time, each revolution was steered in big part, by Putin and by his regime, because I don't know why, but there's a whole lot of Russians who are sure that Ukrainians are like the same Russians but worse, or just another kind of Russians. Although being Ukrainian, and I think I speak now for all Ukrainians, no, we're not Russians, and we just want to live peacefully and just leave us alone. And this message, we are not Russians, leave us alone. This message, we tried to prove it in 2008, then 2014 with another revolution. And each revolution, it becomes bloodier and bloodier. It becomes more harsh. And now, when we don't need to do a revolution to prove it to ourselves, now there's another mean that Putin decided to use, which is war. Right. And this war, as he explained it to the Russians, is to free Ukraine, free the Ukrainian people,
Right.
Although before he said a whole lecture on why Ukrainian people are not Ukrainian people, but well, yes. Now he says that this is to free Ukrainian people from their Nazi government who
Right.
abuses them. Just to,
Yes.
I don't know how could, okay, I understand that decades of propaganda, it washes your brain to the point that you cannot actually see right from wrong, but how can you tell, how can you say that the government is Nazi when in the last elections, the far right candidate, he had like 1.8%?
Right.
And the majority have voted for a Jewish guy.
Right.
Like, really?
The current
What can be
president.
more anti-Nazi than this kind of attitude?
Right. Right.
But I
Yeah.
guess any lie is good to start a war. So that's basically what happened. And
Right.
now Ukrainian people are suffering the consequences.
Yes, and I saw a translated version, I guess you could say, of Russia's State of the Union, so to say. So Vladimir Putin did roughly about an hour or an hour and a half speech. And
You read all
what
that?
I'm sorry?
You read the whole.
I sat through it. I was very curious as far as what type of, I guess you could say, dialogue or narrative is he going to try to use or justify this. And one of them was, as you mentioned, there was essentially white supremacist far right groups in Ukraine, essentially victimizing, terrorizing, and killing citizens. Also, he heavily implied that those groups are supported by the current president and his cabinet, which is ironic. He is Jewish, and in fact, his immediate family members, his grandparents, were killed during the Holocaust. So it was a very, very bizarre, explanation. He also mentioned that he wanted to invade Ukraine for the mere liberation of essentially Russian people being slaughtered and killed. So he indicated there was some type of ethnic genocide going on at the moment. So, like I said, these were all very bizarre, and this was what looked to me like the cornerstone of his narrative. We're going to go and free our fellow countrymen and countrywomen from a tyrannical regime, so to say. So, looking at that, it was bizarre.
Yeah, one of the most ironic, well, tragically ironic things is that the biggest Ukrainian Russian-speaking city, the city with the biggest percentage of Russian-speaking population, is Kharkiv, is my native city of Kharkiv.
Right.
Kharkiv was the city that was shelled and bombed the heaviest. This city is, well, one of the cities that was bombed the heaviest.
Right.
Kharkiv, Mariupol, which is also a Russian-speaking city
Right.
from the south, which is now basically besieged, and there's 500,000 people who are basically hostages because they cannot leave the city. They do not have electricity, water, food for a week already. No heat, nothing at all. And these are Russian-speaking cities. So if he came to, I don't know what the liberation means, but it's
right.
I don't know. This cruelty is just like beyond anything one could imagine. And I was just, before speaking to you, I was just reading the reports from the from Red Cross, who normally in times of war, Red Cross is the neutral organization which helps both parties at war organize green corridors to evacuate civilians.
Right.
And basically, this is right now there's some evacuations going, but before there were 2 or 3 tries of evacuating people from different cities which were besieged basically by Russians. And when people started moving, Russians started firing in them. The last one, there was a whole family of 4 people just, blew up. Just, it means that the Russians say, okay, let's open the green corridor. We'll have civilians. Please go. And then they bombed these civilians. And recent people from Red Cross said that one of the negotiations included the route proposed by the Russians for evacuation of people from Mariupol. And this route, basically, when Red Cross went there, they realized it was covered in landmines.
Oh,
How evil can you
that
be
is
to try
reprehensible. Yeah.
to say that you are evacuating civilians, then to turn to your people, say, oh, we are evacuating civilians, we don't bomb civilians, and at the same time do everything to kill them.
Right.
It's just beyond any evil, ever shown in a Hollywood movie. It's so
Right.
so true. It's worse than Hitler, really.
And
I
right.
don't know
And
if Hitler did this.
right, it probably so, because technology is far greater, and I think the capacity to use technology to inflict pain is greater. And in fact, I would imagine, stepping on a landmine, whether you're mortally wounded or you die, is probably one of the worst experiences in combat. Many landmines are filled with tons of shrapnel. So there's a charge, and there's all these little metal pieces that are kind of layered on top of it. So it's like essentially a very concentrated pipe bomb of sorts that just kind of tears you apart. So instead of just kind of, dying quickly, a lot of times people just end up bleeding out. And even if they do recover, they're completely disabled and maimed forever and disfigured. So it's not even like a simple, I guess you could say, a clean type of death like getting shot or something, which, by the way, is terrible too. But imagine something that kind of rips you in half while also blowing you up at the same time. It's quite terrible. And I think the very tragic irony here is that the very cities he's bombing and the people that are dying, and we're going to keep seeing those numbers come out. Many of those numbers are made of Russian, ethnic Russians who live in Ukraine.
Ethnic Russians or Russian-speaking Ukrainians,
Russian,
because
yeah,
right now
right.
Sometimes it is difficult to say because
Right.
there's a lot of common history. But when you look at this, you can see why he is doing it, because and he already tries to, because he already proposed a couple of times to Ukrainian people to evacuate.
Hi, Maria, are you there? Hello? All right, bear with us one moment. All right, Marie, I think we just lost you there for a second. Could
Oh,
you
okay.
repeat what you just said? Yes.
Yeah, I was just saying that this makes sense in a very cruel way, because he, by sabotaging the normally organized evacuation routes with the Red Cross and Ukrainian army and everything, he tries to push people to take the Russian evacuation route. So
Which is filled
then
with
he can
landmines and
push the
traps.
narrative. Oh, look at all those Ukrainian people who are fleeing to Russia. No one flees to Russia. 2 million people have already.
Right. No one flees to Russia.
No one flees to Russia.
Right.
2 million people have already crossed the European border. I myself recently, yesterday evening, I went to the airport to meet my mother, who has spent 3 days running from Kharkiv. So she is also a refugee right now. So no one goes to Russia. And instead of all this crooked and sick tries to sabotage evacuation, no one will, because this is just inconceivable to go to people who kill you and who kill your family and your friends.
Right. And physically, is your mother okay?
Physically, yes.
Yes. Right. I can only imagine the trauma as far as experiencing all that, getting shelled, having essentially soldiers coming into cities, occupying cities, and attacking civilians. So I'm at least happy to hear she's physically okay, and I hope that she's able to emotionally recover, from all this. It's this catastrophe, so to say. When we were speaking a few days ago, you were mentioning some of the propaganda that's currently being floated around Russia. Now, I've read a few reports as well, including people essentially putting a letter Z on their cars and houses, indicating support for the current Russian regime, being, Vladimir Putin. But you have some firsthand experience of what some people are actually saying.
Yeah, I have a very sad. So another peek into my family's history. I was about my mother came.
All right, hold on one moment. All right, hi. We just lost you for a moment again. Could you repeat what you just
Yeah,
said?
so basically, I was saying that my mother was born in Siberia because
Yes.
she's a part of those Ukrainians who were deported to Siberia in the 30s by Stalin. So
Right.
she basically came back to Ukraine, to Kharkiv. But as she was born in Siberia, so Russia, of course, she had lots of friends, well, still family in there, all the university friends. She worked some time in Moscow in her young years. So we have a big part of our acquaintances are
Right.
Russians living in Russia. And throughout the years, you can see how the propaganda is working on their brains.
Right.
Is when before 2008 it was like, okay, you're Ukrainians, we are Russians, this is fine, this is great, no problem. And then the 2008 revolution was like, oh, are you sure you are Ukrainians? 2014 you're like, oh my god, you are strange people. And now and even 2014 more and
Right.
more people started calling Ukrainians Nazi. I don't know why, because this Nazi narrative, it started really, really long time ago, and
Right.
throughout the years, this Nazi it came out stronger and stronger. Basically, it sufficed saying I am Ukrainian, I am not Russian, to be treated as a Nazi by them.
Right.
So it becomes really strange, and now when the war is so obvious to the whole world, and the whole world says that it is impossible to tolerate such a cruelty in our age, and we consider ourselves to be civilized more or less, and this is
Mhm.
Europe, and how come, and so on. And the Russians living in Russia, most of them, they do support it. They do think that there are Nazis in Ukraine abusing Russian people or Russian speaking people. They do believe it. And when my mother calls her brother and says, tells what's happening really on the
Right.
ground, she is treated by a Nazi. She's treated to be a Nazi, she's treated to be a crazy person or something like this. And this. And these people, it's not. These cases are not isolated. Basically every Russian I know who lives in Russia is like this. Russians who live in Europe, of course, completely different people.
Right.
Russians living in Russia, they do believe it, and well, there's a very common narrative now in the internet. Oh, poor Russians! There are lots of sanctions hitting on them. Real normal people on the ground, they do not support Putin. They just are afraid to go on the streets and protest. No, the very small part of them, really very small part of them who are aware and who maybe going on the streets. There were a couple of thousands only
Right.
on the streets a couple of days ago. These
Right.
people, they realize things, but these people are a minority. Most of them think that they're good, and they think that the world has gone crazy, and the world
Right.
wants Russian people to suffer, and they are prepared to suffer because
Wow.
I don't know, it's some kind of religious stuff.
Right.
It's
Right.
like, yeah, the God sent us suffering, so we will
Oh.
withstand it. It is this
Wow.
kind of mood already from so many people, because they not me, because most of my Russian speaking friends are living in Europe, so they know
Right.
what's happening. But most of my mother's friends from the university years and things like this, they send the messages like, oh, Ira, these Nazis, did they hurt you? She was like,
Oh.
oh my god, can you
Right.
be more wrong, more cruelly wrong on this? You are
Yeah.
hurting me.
Right. And what's strange, it just seems logically ridiculous, based on the points that we've, just, discussed, so to say. They have, a Jewish president. There isn't really a whole lot of there isn't strong evidence to indicate that there's some sort of Nazi uprising in Ukraine, or there's really no precedent or some sort of great body of evidence indicating that Ukrainians are sympathetic, towards that as well. And and even to be fair, too, many parts of Europe do have some of those fringe right-wing white supremacist groups. So whether it's the UK,
every country
Scandinavia,
has its
right?
share of idiots.
Absolutely,
Every country has its share of rapists,
right,
thieves,
absolutely,
stupid people. Like it's like everywhere. They do not, in any case, affect the policy and the country in
right,
general.
right, absolutely. And some horrifying evidence that has come out with the invasion of Ukraine by Putin's regime and you could say warmongers and hawks in the military is that he's essentially sending out the youngest, greenest, most inexperienced soldiers to the front line with equipment that doesn't work, rations that are expired, and simply just not enough training, and essentially to go and face and fight the elderly, women, children, and the many husbands, fathers, and brothers who are also defending their country. So looking at that, it really displays the magnitude of Putin's cruelty, where he's essentially sending almost the akin of barely graduated high school students with little training and equipment that doesn't work 50% of the time to invade another country.
The part on the ground really shattered to pieces by the Ukrainian army and Ukrainian people.
Right.
Because first, when people are defending their land and their families, they become fierce.
Absolutely.
And on the other hand, you have like those conscripts who
conscripts. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, conscripts
don't understand what's happening, and well, yes. But right now, actually, it started a bit. There are more and more because we know these people from those that Ukrainian army captures,
right?
And they start capturing more and more of experienced fighters too, especially those the pilots of the fighter jets,
right,
or other kind of planes. Then they have the legions from the Chechnya region,
right,
which are known for being kind of super fierce, but still they are being captured.
Right.
But no, yes, there are lots of green young boys who are sent as a bullet meat.
Yeah, meat shields, also, cannon fodder. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, yes. But there are also experienced fighters who also get caught and who also come try to capture Ukraine on the ground. Right. So basically, the ground is not a big problem. The big problem is the sky.
Right. And one of the major themes that I've seen out there is the rise of nationalism, extreme nationalism. I would say like jingoism, xenophobia within Russia over the past 15 years. And I would imagine you've probably seen the writing on the wall earlier than many. But, there's many reports and scholarship out there indicating that Vladimir Putin essentially wants to bring back the greatness of the Imperial Russian Empire pre-communism. Yes. So like the Romanov royal family and things like that. So could you kind of, expand upon
that? Well, it's kind of obvious, I think, to everyone that he wants to recreate the USSR by totally ignoring the reasons why it fell apart, which is stupid. But right now, actually, there are lots of there are lots of people who don't understand why exactly he's doing this, because the resistance is so fierce. So maybe if he had some doubts about the Ukrainian self-esteem or what Ukrainians do think about themselves, right now with such a fierce opposition, there are no doubt at all. So even if he, erases all Ukrainian cities and kills all Ukrainian people, he will not be able to profit from the land, because those, 2-3 persons who will left, they will not ever accept Russian dominance or Russian government or things like this. So this is why actually there are lots of people who don't understand why he's doing this now, because
Right.
even if he captures the ground, the people will never, ever accept him. So
Right.
recreating USSR will be impossible because
Right.
people will just not agree to this.
Right.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
and there are lots of, and the Russia actually it has made lots of wars. It made two wars in Chechnya. There were war in two
Afghanistan in
wars
the 80s.
in Afghanistan in the 80s. There were two wars in Georgia as
Right.
well. There are Russian military bases in Transnistria and the
Right.
Moldovan border. Finland is not happy with Russia either.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, Japan has some.
There's also a history there, World War I and a little bit
Things about
before. Right, yeah.
about well, Japan still thinks that the South Korean islands are Japanese
Right,
islands.
Sakhalin in that region. Yeah, right.
Yes, so kind of there are lots of people who think that Russia got some territories it should not have. That's
Right.
like that Ukraine
Yeah.
will surely never be one of these territories.
Right, right. And it seems like they're quickly making enemies in every direction. And it really looks that Vladimir Putin overplayed his hand, thinking that he's going to essentially battering ram his way through Ukraine, and it was going to be, an easy victory, in of itself. So, let me ask you, why is Vladimir Putin and the current Russian regime, why are they scared of Ukraine joining NATO and the European Union officially? Because it seems to me that is the narrative they've been pushing, to prevent Ukraine from joining, one of these or both of these organizations.
This is a very strange narrative, because if Russia doesn't want to have NATO on its border, okay, but
Right.
it already has, like, there's Poland and the European
Right.
countries.
Which
If
is
it
nearby
doesn't
too.
want a NATO country on its border, if it took over Ukraine, it would find itself with another not NATO countries on its border.
Right.
With,
And it's going to be Poland. Right.
yeah, and Hungary.
And Hungary, right.
So whenever you go, there will always be a border. So yes, there are lots of people, actually, lots of even Europeans who say, no, it is kind of Ukraine's fault because it played with the notion of the NATO and things like this.
Right.
The NATO, Ukraine is just one small country. Just, take a look at Ukraine and take a look at Russia. Ukraine
Right.
needs someone, a union to protect it from Russia,
Right.
to prevent from what's happening now.
Right.
And this is actually a big, it's a big disappointment that Ukraine was not in NATO or in the European
Right.
Union. Otherwise, maybe the war would not have been started.
Right. And, it seems to me, at least based here in the United States, both Republicans and Democrats have equally shit the bed as far as handling this. And this just goes beyond just one administration. So, from where you're standing and with your experiences, how do you think the U.S. failed to prevent this or failed to properly address this over the years?
Well, NATO.
Right.
There's this, and
right. Kind of the ambiguous stance as far as letting Ukraine in or not letting Ukraine in. It seems like they're kind of almost I guess you could say putting their head in the sands, just kind of avoiding it, and hopefully nothing bad happens. That's what it kind of looked like.
Yes, that's this, and let's not forget that how freaked Russia is about the US.
Right.
And so it should have been, okay, we're going in, Ukraine is our friend, it comes to NATO,
right.
and everything's fine. But it was, Ukraine is our friend, but let it be and see what happens. And what happens is war and death and destruction. So this is where America screwed up.
Right. And as far... Right. No, absolutely. That logically, makes a lot of sense. And And in fact, I would imagine a lot of that ambiguity and indecisiveness comes from certain financial ties too. Don't want to affect the price of oil, for instance, among many others. And as far as Europe, where do you think the failure of leadership was? Do we play? Can any of it be placed on Germany or the UK or France or maybe any of the other member states?
Germany has
Germany,
ties with Russia.
right?
And of course, Europe buys a lot of gas from Russia, but Germany
Right.
in particular, and Germany really strangely, they have closed their nuclear stations, nuclear plants, and supposedly due to ecological considerations,
Right.
while the nuclear power is really not potent at all
Right.
if it's not in a seismic active area like in Japan.
Right.
And the risk of it, exploding is really, really, really low. So it was really, well, to me, it was a kind of stupid decision to close these plants. And then they opened a couple of coal ones, which pollute.
Right.
And they became even more reliant on Russia, which is dangerous. So
Right.
right now, yeah, I think in European Union there's lots of things to be done by Germany.
Yeah, it seems like there is a good amount of blame to go in many directions as far as how this has been handled, 15 to 20 years leading up to this event. So, moving forward, talk a little bit about D.Center, and then we're going to go into the initiatives that have been set up to help Ukrainians in this current conflict. How did you come up with D.Center, and how did you come up with the design? And by the way, everybody, I would preface it this: if anybody has a moment, check out our website, D.Center. It's in the comments section of this post. This is a great resource to get news related to cryptocurrency, blockchain, NFTs, metaverse, you name it. But what is very, very great about it, this is actually built and set up akin to an actual blockchain node ecosystem. So instead of going to a website where effectively you see a laundry list of links and headlines as far as what you want to look for, you go onto her website at D.Center, and this is set up like a decentralized node networks. So, and by the way, what you do is you click on various nodes, and essentially with each attribute you click, it leads you to essentially the news and information you're looking for. So whether that's cryptocurrency gaming, whether it's like how-tos, whether it's the NFTs and metaverse, whether it's even current cryptocurrency rates, this is set up like a decentralized blockchain node network. It's essentially a gamified experience when you're looking for information and news and anything and everything relevant regarding blockchain and the metaverse and DeFi and regulations. It is great. So I would suggest anybody to check out. But anyway, talk a little bit about it and what inspired the design.
Thank you. Well, design was inspired by the idea of decentralization as well as the name D.Center, because
Yes.
to me, one of the things I really do not like, and the things I think are harmful for any kind of organization or a country, is centralization. Is one guy or girl making decisions according to their ego and their own goals. So I think we see the consequences of such behavior really well in geopolitics right now.
Right.
So decentralized systems fascinate me.
Yes. And by the way, this is the only one of this type that I have seen, and it's not just simply a website of blockchain enthusiasts who love decentralization. Everything on this website is decentralized but logical. So keep following the nodes that you click to get to where you want. That's really what it's like.
That's the idea, and it suits really well the universe of crypto and blockchain because it is so vast, and because it touches virtually any domain, any economic domain, any activity type, And it is so like there's lots of different directions
Yes.
of knowledge, and it is not linear. And this is why this organization, this mind map type of organization, for me
Right.
is the best one to learn about the blockchain. It's like
Oh yeah.
you start in the beginning, and then you choose if you want to learn about Bitcoin or legal aspects or use cases or some theory and how the mechanism works.
Right.
And basically, yeah, you go further and further and further.
Yeah. And I couldn't tell you how many times if I want to look up something in blockchain, cryptocurrency, NFT news, and I just have to parse through just such a huge amount of information. And then sometimes I still don't get exactly to where I want to. This website is totally different. Like I said, viewers, please check it out. By the way, other than the fact that it's an incredible design, it saves you a lot of time and it's kind of fun clicking different nodes and seeing where they lead to. And it's logically where you want to go. So you click different attributes, brings you to another node, click a different set of attributes. And as you progress, you get to where you want, so to say. So I actually really enjoy that. So you recently put up an article, Crypto Initiatives to Help Ukraine. Let's talk about that a little bit. Tell me a little bit about some of the initiatives going on, and then we'll kind of get into the details of them.
Yeah, the great thing about crypto and blockchain in general is that it is transparent, because
Yes.
it is like the notions of decentralization and transparency are linked together, because one is not possible without the other. And the fact that it is transparent, it can become a really great tool, to follow in the money. And when it comes
Right.
to charity, because right now there's a lot of charity use case in Ukraine.
Right.
When it comes to charity, using the transparent blockchain is a great way to ensure that your donations, they go to the entity that you
Right.
want them to go to. And this is also thanks to the Ukrainian government, which is kind of crypto friendly.
Right.
And
yes, they are.
yes, and this is really, and I think it's well, Ukraine has a very big IT brain,
Yeah.
and lots of crypto projects. They have Ukrainian developers, and that is why when the war started, the Minister of Digital Transformation, he posted a couple of addresses, crypto addresses, the official addresses of the Ukrainian government. So
Right.
he started with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the stablecoin, the USDT.
Right.
And then there was so much enthusiasm on Twitter that he expanded it. There was Gavin Wood, the co-founder of Polkadot, who said, "I will donate you 5 million if you open a Polkadot address." So he did this one. Then Solana came along. The co-founder of Solana, Alexander Yakovenko, he is Ukrainian. So
Right. Yeah.
now a Ukrainian government has a Solana address too. And they ended with a Dogecoin.
Right.
So even the memes can help Ukraine. And basically, having these official addresses, it means that not only people can send crypto to these addresses easily from anywhere in the world, it also means that other initiatives, other fundraisers, NFT projects, DAOs, whatever, they can raise money among their users, proposing their perks, okay, and make sure that the money goes to the official addresses of the Ukrainian government. That's why there are lots of NFT projects where these official addresses are hard coded into the smart contract. So you can go to Etherscan, you can check the smart contract, and you can compare the addresses and see that this is legit. And this is absolutely incredible. Like, what kind of what any other kind of monetary system can allow you
Right.
to do the donations, which are this secure.
Right. And right now, we're looking at real-time decentralized solutions in action, live in the round. So we have some DAOs here that are supporting Ukrainians that are currently fighting, in this current crisis, and also to help those who are suffering in Ukraine during this current crisis as well. So everybody, I will be posting the links for all of these initiatives in the comments section. But the three ones that are mentioned here are Ukraine DAO, Unchain, and Aid for Ukraine. So if you want to, touch upon any one of those and, explain to people how they can help and, perhaps go into some of the underlying features as far as why this is so effective.
Yes. Well, Ukraine DAO, I think their mission is kind of ended now because the main goal was to auction off an NFT of a Ukrainian flag, which they did for $6.7 million.
Oh, wow.
Which is huge. This is huge.
Yeah.
Because the power of the DAO, decentralized autonomous organization, is not only in fact that the funds are managed collectively. It also means that the reputation and the network and the image of people who compose the DAO is also, driving it together. And in case of Ukraine DAO, there was a couple of really famous person and really famous DAOs. There was a Pleasure DAO who promoted it. Pleasure DAO is I don't know if you heard of it. It's they're kind of famous guys. They buy NFTs of cultural importance.
Okay.
And they are famous for having bought the signature of Edward Snowden.
Okay, so now that sounds familiar now. Okay.
Yeah. They have this kind of libertarian side.
Right.
Libertarian
philosophy behind it. Yeah.
Yeah. They have the philosophy. Yeah.
Yes.
That's the right word. Wow. So they promoted Ukraine DAO. So then there were girls from Poteriaieva.
Right. Yeah, band. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So that's why they did a really good job. They auctioned off so they promoted the official addresses of the government, and also they auctioned off this NFT, which is a super simple NFT of Ukrainian flag. But yeah, someone bought it for $6.7 million. So
all right.
They did a great job.
Yeah.
And
incredible.
The DAOs, and the other DAOs that I wrote about, it was Unchain. Unchain is promoted by a bunch of Ukrainian guys involved in the crypto, notably the guy from Near. The Near blockchain.
Yes.
Co-founders of Near blockchain are Ukrainian.
Yeah, that's actually true. Now I think about it. Yeah.
You have lots of talented people in that country.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, and so the Unchained DAO is now also is accepting donations in a really, really wide range of cryptos, and but they do not actually send it to the official addresses of the Ukrainian government. They send it to other humanitarian aid. Aid.
So those send like NGOs and charities, yeah.
Yes, because some people can have problem with donating to the official Ukrainian address because it will go to buying medical supplies, the equipment for the army, but it can also go to buying arms. And there are people who are not comfortable with this. So it makes sense that there are DAOs who would invest in other kind of support.
Wow, that's incredible. And the other one, Aid for Ukraine. Yeah,
this one is Solana.
Yes.
It's the tribute to the Solana ecosystem, and it is it's a fast developing ecosystem. Actually, it's still far from Ethereum, but there are lots of people working on it. And as I said, Solana's co-founder is Ukrainian. So you can also suppose that there are lots of projects done by the Ukrainian people on the Solana.
Yes.
And so they have lots of NFT projects and this DAO, the Aid for Ukraine, which sends the funds either to the official government addresses
Right.
or to the fiat account.
Right.
Because like the thing that we have to understand that when the government receives the crypto, it either must find someone who will sell them products for the
Right.
crypto,
Right.
okay, or it has to buy fiat money and then to buy things with fiat. So
Right.
there are more and more people who accept crypto for selling tactical gear and things like this, and arms also. But there
Right.
are still some people who do not accept crypto, so you need to have fiat. And what the Aid for Ukraine does, it partnered with FTX exchange,
Right. The X. Yeah.
and yes, and they help. They convert a part of their donations into fiat, and then send the fiat to the bank account of the Ukrainian government.
Right. And I just want to point out something, especially as yesterday was International Women's Day. A shout out to the women defenders and militia
Yes.
that are currently in active combat defending their country. For anybody who's been watching the news or following this, there is so much footage and photographs of fashion models, beauty queens, grandmothers, teachers, nurses taking up arms, putting on armor, and defending their country. So as far as women, the women of Ukraine must absolutely be celebrated. That is an incredible amount of valor and courage, to say, the very least. So listen, I'm gonna give them a clap. That is
Yeah,
that is incredible. Seriously.
I totally, me with my cat, we totally agree.
Right. And by the way, like I said, I think Putin has started something that he cannot finish now. So, if this is the spirit of the people of Ukraine, I'm sorry. This is going to be another quagmire, and you could almost say tragedy for whatever he thinks his reputation or his legacy will be, to say the very least. So, wanted to just throw that out there.
Yeah, well, it is worth mentioning, because the country that upon being hit by missiles and being declared a full-scale war, the country
Right.
that have huge queues of people who want to go to militia, who want to take up arms and fight, whether they be old or sick or too young or women or anyone, or people who had never done any kind of training. All these people, there are much more people in militia than needed. Basically, there are lots of people who are refused. There are lots of people who beg, to be accepted into the militia, because
wow,
it is very hard, actually, to see your country invaded and not to do anything.
Right.
So it may be easier in some ways to go to militia and fight, because you're doing, actually. But right now there are too many people who want to do this, and there are lots of like warning. There are lots of information on the network saying, like, we have lots of people in the militia. We don't have arms for everyone. Like, we don't have enough bottles for everyone to do the Molotov cocktails.
Oh, the Molotov cocktails. Yes, I saw that.
So just please, if you can, stay home. If you can, please work, because actually that's a huge hit on the economy, because no one's working. Like, only the Western part is working. So yes, that's the spirit, and this is why it is a very difficult war. It's a tragic war, but Ukraine will never be taken, because that's the spirit.
No, I don't think it will. No, it's not going to be taken. And in fact, it seems like to meet the brutality of the landmines Russia has been leaving, something as equally as menacing is the Molotov cocktail. So, that is, something the Russian soldiers are going to have to deal with, by the way, which could be just as painful, if not more of a painful death than stepping on a landmine. So, and by the way, with all the footage that's come out, Ukrainian militia and defenders are highly organized. Nobody is taking this lightly, so to say. So the amount of dedication, organization, and valor behind the defenders of Ukraine, the various men, women, children, and elderly who are defending their country. My God, I think Russia unleashed a form of hell onto itself, and Putin is to blame, to say the very least.
Do you want a small anecdote?
Absolutely, please. I love anecdotes.
There was a real life story actually.
Sure.
There was recently a woman who took off a Russian drone from her balcony by throwing a jar of pickled tomatoes.
Wow. That's awesome. And probably one of those military drones was like 10,000 plus US dollars to even make, much less even deploy and fuel and take care of. So that is great. I mean, wow, that is incredible. Moving forward, NFTs have a role in this, aid economy for the, the citizens and militia and defenders of Ukraine. So, these are Ethereum-based, NFTs. So we're dealing with holy water, art under artillery, and the soul of Ukraine. Do you want to touch on some of those?
Well, just touching on everyone, I would like to repeat how wonderful it is that you can buy a charity NFT and be sure that the proceeds do go to where intended.
Right.
So these are the NFTs that I cite in this article, in this newsletter. They most of them, they had the government address hard-coded into the smart contract.
Right.
So when you're buying it and when you're reselling it afterwards, because royalties are also concerned.
Yes.
The proceeds, they go to official addresses, whether it be Ethereum or Solana.
Right.
Well, then it's up to, from the moment you have these official addresses, people can express their creativity in any number of ways, trying to raise funds. I myself have the Soul of Ukraine, which is very, very beautiful. It's not expensive at all.
And it's the traditional costumes of Ukrainian women, right? That is the theme? Yes, which you are wearing. That is awesome.
I'm wearing one of it, yes. One of it.
That's wonderful. And what is it? What's the name of the traditional Ukrainian costume?
The name is Vyshyvanka.
Vyshyvanka, okay.
Which means embroidered.
Embroidered, okay. Wow,
yeah, Vyshyvanka literally means embroidered. And Ukrainian people love to embroider everything.
Oh, that's great. Yep, and like I said, everybody, I will be posting all of these links in the comments section. So please check these out, participate, and be active, and act now. And yes, please continue.
And the beauty of the NFT project is that not only you're donating things, you also get a beautiful NFT in your wallet. Like the Soul of Ukraine doll, this is actually like the traditional dolls and traditional costumes. They're all different, like any NFT project.
Right.
And they are really beautiful. And a doll is like, it's 003 Ethereum. It's like $80 or something like this.
Right, yeah.
It's just nice to have it. So it's an easy and nice way to donate, to do good, and also to have yourself a fancy NFT in your wallet.
Right. So, anybody can start becoming an NFT art collector now, and especially by doing a very, very good thing, and also learning at the same time as well. So, we can really start getting into the weeds as far as, the various aspects and beauty of Ukrainian culture. And, we're going to see, the beauty of Ukrainian culture come out in many, of these projects. And, another one that looked interesting is something called the Fluff World, this NFT project. They have a special F the war background that users can mint, which I think is
Do you know
great.
the fluffs? Do you know this project?
I didn't. I'm not too familiar with it. I've read about it and I've heard about it. But if you'd like to elaborate, please, by all means.
Fluffs. Well, this is one of my favorite projects in the whole NFT universe. This is a New Zealander team who started with these fluffy rabbits.
Okay.
They're called fluffs, and then they expanded into fluffy spiders called thingies.
Nice.
And they have a fluffy bears called party bears, and actually they are a great example of how you make a great NFT project, because they have everything. They have the community, the incentives, the parties, the white lists, the all kinds of perks, which make the ownership of NFT truly useful. And so yeah, just if you have a moment, that's not related to Ukraine, but if you have a moment, take a look at the fluffs. I love them a lot.
Listen, I'll check that out too, and I'll post that in the comments as well. I think F the war is a very, very universal and agreed theme right now, so to say. So, and
yeah, but this is, I think
please.
this minute is already over, and actually this the fuck the war background is because the fluffs, the bunnies. They have different kind of music and different kind of background that you can change, and you can, in this case, buy. So they created in cooperation with the Ukrainian part of the development team. They created this background, the fuck the war background, that people could mint, and then on the background of their fluffs, of their bunnies.
Yes.
And they
awesome.
They're almost $500,000. They raised via this mint.
Wow. And I am particularly impressed. All the Solana and Ethereum innovation and projects that have, emerged from this as well. So, I couldn't be happier seeing that there's so many people that are actively participating in, getting aid there through the form of, cryptocurrency or P2P, funds and whatnot. This is great, I have to say. And, kind of going forward, from that, what do you want people to know about Ukraine as of this moment? And how do you think this will play out, as far as the immediate future, like in the next 6 months, 9 months, and so on and so forth?
Well, I would like for it to play out in the best way for Ukraine, in the least cruel, in the most safe and way for everyone. Because yes, we are making donations now. This is great, and there's a huge international acknowledgement of Ukrainians and the culture and the country. But the truth is that the most urgent thing right now is to stop the war and to stop people from dying, because that's really, really, that's what's happening. Right as we speak, people are dying there.
Right.
So that's the most urgent thing to do. And despite numerous refusals from the NATO to close the sky over Ukraine, this is still the most urgent thing to do.
Right.
Yes.
And by the way, yes, please continue.
No, go on.
Well, I was thinking too. So I feel this will end up being another military and political catastrophe for the Russian Federation and for Putin especially. So when this invasion fails, what happens to a leader like Putin? Like, there has to be, there has to be
I really hope he suicides himself. He kills himself.
Right.
Like Hitler did. That's the destiny he deserves.
Because I would imagine in a country like that, with a political environment like that, it seems like death is always around the corner, especially if you're a leader and you fuck up, so, for him, this is going to end up being something that crashes the economy. This is going to end up being something that's going to cause the lives of many, many people on both sides. I don't think he's walking away from this war without being also a victim in his own way of it as well. I mean, there's no way he's, claiming any type of prize or ribbon from this. It seems like he may just have not so much sand left in his hourglass, so to say.
I certainly hope so, but you can never underestimate the power of tyrants
Right.
over their own people. As I told before, Russian people are ready to suffer.
Right.
And they will take the suffering as the, I don't know, God's will that will like
Right.
they suffer now
Destiny
and will be
or
rewarded
right.
in the afterlife or things like this. They can totally believe that. So, of course, if the reason prevails, and I do hope it prevails, he will be thrown out by his own or kill himself, or I don't know.
Right.
Something will happen. But he's like all world tyrants, he's a paranoiac. And
Right.
do not forget that Stalin, who murdered tens of millions
Right.
of his own people, he died in his own bed of old age.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yes, you just never know. And, across the world in classrooms, on TV, there's always talk about democracy and what democracy should be and the good and bad of it. And democracy is not a perfect system. I think here in the U.S. we see that very, very often. And by the way, we also see that very often in Europe as well. But I will say one of the most poignant and powerful examples of really a country defending the institutions of democracy is Ukraine. And in fact, I would liken that to the original founders of the United States when they were fighting the British Empire, essentially against a tyrant overseas, King George. So I think of the founding fathers, who essentially engineered and drafted the Constitution and kind of set up the original pillars for democracy. I think they would be incredibly proud and inspired with what they're seeing. And in fact, in many ways, what's going on in Ukraine right now, people, women, children, the elderly, brothers, husbands, fathers defending their homeland. That is precisely what the founding fathers had in mind. Protecting, your own people, your own land against, some form of tyranny. And we're seeing it right now. So I think, we as individuals, I think we owe it to ourselves, and I think we owe it to our own beliefs to do something. And if we have the available technology to do it, then do it. And like I mentioned earlier, you don't have to be a Bitcoin whale. You don't have to be a Wall Street suit. You don't have to be a DC bureaucrat to do anything about it. You as you are can do something right now. So like I mentioned before, I will be posting the links to all of these initiatives in the comments section. And, Marie, if there are other initiatives that you want people to have awareness about and get involved in, please send that my way, and I will post it on my social media as well. So, the word can get out there. And by the way, I think what's empowering is that if people feel like they can make a difference, if people feel powerful, your neighbor, your classmates, there's no sense of feeling helpless, You can actually do something by participating in one of these initiatives and really have a say and have a part in the outcome. Your participation, your donation, you offering some kind of crypto funding could be the difference between life and death, or victory, victory and defeat, and a soldier's experience in melee in life, during these times. So don't underestimate the significance of all of your actions, as individuals. So Marie, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and explaining and sharing this wealth of knowledge regarding Ukraine, the situation, and these initiatives. I can honestly say, Marie, you and I go way back. One of my first guests who came on volunteered her time to come on and talk about D.Center and some of the inner workings and some of the things you had in the back burner to be releasing in the future. So I'll always thank you for that. I always appreciate you for that.
Well, thank you for having me. I love speaking about crypto. I love speaking about Ukraine, and if today we can speak about both,
right? Why not? Yeah, absolutely. So history is unfolding before our eyes right now. So everyone, we can all do our part, and we can all have really a major difference in all of this, more so than probably any of us could ever think.
This is true. It takes even a small gesture. It counts, and it counts for Ukraine, of course, and it also counts for you, because
Absolutely.
you can say that I did a gesture. I proved my position. I did not stay aside of this huge injustice.
Yeah.
So it makes you a better person in your eyes too, and this is important.
We can all make the world and everything around us a little bit better, and you know what? It doesn't take all that much effort.
Totally.
Again, Marie, thank you so much for coming on, and I'm very much looking forward to speaking to you afterwards and getting the word out regarding all these initiatives and making sure that people can participate and get on these and start, helping out in the crisis in Ukraine right now.
Yes. Thank you very much, Adam. And thank you very much, everyone.
Take care. Bye.